Welcome. Today we're looking at a story, really ancient, from Persia, over 1,000 years old.
That's right.
But it really hits on something we still wrestle with constantly, doesn't it? This whole line between, well, duty and your own conscience.
Absolutely. Obedience versus questioning things.
Yeah.
We're diving into a story from the Shahnameh, the Persian epic. And we're looking at it through Dr. Pooyan Ghamari's article.
Rostam and Esfandiar. Armor of Faith, Eyes Closed. That's the one.
Mm-hmm. And it's a deep look, sometimes, a bit uncomfortable.
Sure.
At heroism, loyalty, and, well, the price you pay for maybe not asking why often enough.
Okay, so our mission here today is kind of to unpack this really tragic clash between these two huge figures from the epic.
Rostam and Esfandiar, yeah.
Understand what's driving them, the forces behind their actions.
And pull out the lessons.
Right.
What does this ancient story tell us now?
Exactly. So where does it begin? With the prince.
It starts with the young prince, Esfandiar, and by all accounts, he's, righteous, driven, seems destined for greatness.
Okay.
But the story finds him, imprisoned.
Imprisoned by who? Enemies?
No, that's the twist. By his own father, King Goshtasp.
His father? Why?
Well, the article suggests the king isn't afraid of enemies outside the kingdom. He's afraid of his son.
Afraid of Esfandiar's power growing?
Exactly. His rising influence. The potential challenge, maybe?
So Goshtasp, the king, wants to ensure, total control before he hands over the throne.
Seems that way. And he sets this task for Esfandiar, almost a test.
A test of loyalty.
You could say that. He tells Esfandiar, look, if you want the crown, you've got to prove yourself.
Okay, what's the proof?
Go and bind Rostam, the legendary hero Rostam, who's, getting older by this point.
Bind Rostam, wow. That's no small task. But why Rostam? Did the king hate him?
Well, the author, Dr. Ghamari, makes a really crucial point here. It might not have been personal hatred. It was more about demanding absolute, unquestioning obedience from whoever was going to be the next king.
So it's about the principle, command over wisdom.
Right. Prioritizing command above maybe experience or even what's truly right. And Rostam. Well, Rostam's the definition of independence, isn't he?
He's not someone who just follows orders blindly.
Definitely not. He won't just fall in line.
So, Esfandiar. He accepts this. He sets out.
He does. And he's totally wrapped in this armor of faith and duty, as the article puts it.
Convinced he's doing the right thing.
Utterly convinced. He believes he's on the path of truth, carrying out his father's, the king's, command.
But there's something he's missing.
A fundamental question the article points out. He doesn't stop to ask. Does my father's command, even though he's the king, automatically line up with, divine justice?
Or is it just the king's will?
Exactly. Is the king's will always the same as truth? He doesn't question that part.
Okay, so that's Esfandiar's mindset. What about Rostam? Where do we find him in all this?
Rostam's in a very different place. He's not chasing glory anymore, not looking for power.
He's older now, right?
Yeah, he's aged. And he's suffered, immense loss. We all know the story of Sohrab.
Killing his own son unknowingly. That tragedy.
Right. So he's deliberately pulled back from the court, from all the politics.
Where is he?
Living quietly. Close to nature, the article mentions. Just detached from the whole game of kings and power.
So you have this incredible contrast set up.
Stark contrast, yeah.
Yeah.
Esfandiar, young, full of fire and purpose, armored in his certainty, his piety, focused on duty.
Bringing the old world, maybe Rostam's world, under the new king's order.
And then Rostam, the elder, weary but wise, grounded in what he's lived through, seeking peace, not another power struggle.
And the source of the article is clear. This isn't like a simple good guy versus bad guy fight.
Absolutely critical point. It's framed as a collision of two truths.
Two truths, how so?
Well, one truth is the kind born from experience, often painful experience, like Rostam's.
Lived reality.
Right. The other truth is born from, a decree, a command from authority, like the one Esfandiar is following.
Okay, so Esfandiar genuinely believes he's doing the right thing, for order, for legitimacy.
He really does. His goal isn't to destroy Rostam. He just needs to capture him, bring him back, fulfill the king's condition.
If you get the throne. He thinks it's the right thing.
Exactly. For the kingdom, for his father.
But Rostam sees it differently.
Rostam, with all his years navigating, the tricky side of power, the hypocrisies, he senses something really unsettling here.
Like danger?
Danger, yes, but maybe a specific kind. He understands that sometimes the worst things, like oppression, catastrophe, They don't always look evil up front.
They can arrive looking reasonable.
Yes, even virtuous, carrying the flag of doing what's right or following some sacred duty.
And Esfandiar himself, he's not painted as evil, right? He's not
Yeah.
malicious.
No, the article is very clear on that. His intentions are pure, guided by his faith, his father's word.
Ugh.
But it's that unwavering faith, that absolute certainty, because it came from authority. That's what becomes dangerous.
His piety becomes a weapon.
A sharp, unyielding blade, yeah.
Yeah.
And this blind obedience, the author argues, it leads him straight into darkness, tragically.
So Rostam tries to reason with him, avoid the fight.
He does. He tries to explain his position, maybe find another way. But Esfandiar is just relentless.
He won't back down.
No. He forces the conflict. He pushes Rostam, who's older now, remember?
And Rostam gets wounded.
Yeah, the fight goes on for a long time, a week, the epic says, and Rostam is wounded, faltering, pushed to the absolute brink.
And this is where the Simurgh comes in.
Yes. This amazing, almost mythical figure from Rostam's past reappears, the Simurgh.
The giant wise bird who's helped him before, guided him, healed him.
That's the one. But this time the guidance isn't comfort. It's not healing.
What is it then?
It's a harsh truth, a bitter pill to swallow. The Simurgh basically tells Rostam, you have no other choice. To survive, you have to strike Esfandiar down.
Wow. So survival required this terrible act.
It seems so. And the weapon the Simurgh tells him to make. That's significant, too.
What is it?
A special dart, made from the tamarisk tree.
Tamarisk. Why that?
Well, it's described as something natural, ancient, rooted in the earth. It connects Rostam to something fundamental, maybe older, truer than just the orders of a king.
Something beyond the immediate conflict.
Perhaps something grounded.
And so, the final moment arrives.
The moment of ultimate tragedy, yeah. Rostam, following the Simurgh's stark advice, uses that tamarisk dart.
And he strikes Esfandiar.
He does. He strikes Esfandiar's eyes.
His eyes. Oh, man. The article includes a quote from the Shahnameh here, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It's heartbreaking.
Can you share that?
Sure. It goes something like, when a week of battle at last had passed, a sigh rose up from the warriors amassed. From Rostam flew a tamarisk-made dart that struck Esfandiar with perfect art.
Wow.
The burning shaft, so swift, so bright, took from the prince his sacred sight. He fell from his steed in anguish and pain, with bloodied eyes and soul in strain.
Took from the prince his sacred sight. That's powerful imagery.
Incredibly powerful. And the analysis in the article is just profound here.
What's the interpretation?
That the physical blinding, it's symbolic, right?
Of course.
It's the moment Esfandiar finally truly sees
the truth
of his situation, the fatal flaw in his unquestioning path. But
it's too late.
Exactly. Only when he's mortally wounded, blind, only then does the blindness lift, metaphorically speaking.
So the symbolism, it really lays bare the core conflict.
It does, because both were heroes, right? Both, in their own way, believed they were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But only Rostam, maybe because of everything he'd been through, the suffering, losing Sohrab.
He'd reached a different kind of wisdom.
A wisdom that allowed him, maybe forced him to ask the hard question, to ask why. Why must I do this?
Whereas Esfandiar never did.
He never did. So the story isn't really about right versus wrong in the simple way.
It's more complex.
Much more. It's about the huge difference between, say, genuine awareness, the kind that comes from experience, and thinking critically.
And assumption.
An assumption, yeah. Which often just comes from accepting what authority tells you, accepting the structures without question.
Esfandiar is dangerous because he's the noble soldier who never questions.
Exactly. Not because he's evil, he's the perfect, unquestioning follower, and that's the danger in this context. Following an order he never really examined.
Okay, so let's bring this into our world as the article encourages.
Yeah.
We see situations where authority, maybe rules, traditions, structures, they're just followed because, well, that's the way it is.
Often happens, sometimes presented as sacred, even.
Right, in the name of order or faith or tradition. This story makes you ask, what happens when that kind of unquestioning obedience takes the place of individual conscience?
That's the core question Dr. Ghamari raises. The true hero, maybe, isn't just the one who obeys perfectly,
but the one who dares to ask the uncomfortable questions.
The one who has the courage to ask why. Even if it shakes things up, even if it challenges the way things were supposed to be.
So Rostam's final stand, it wasn't about pride.
Not primarily, it seems. It was more a fight for clarity, a refusal to be forced by sheer authority into doing something his whole life's wisdom told him was fundamentally wrong.
Regardless of where the order came from.
Exactly.
And what about the synerg? That guidance reappearing right at the end.
Yeah, the article has this really powerful thought on that.
What's the takeaway?
That this kind of ancient wisdom, this ability to see a deeper truth, the kind the Simurgh represents, it's still out there. It still exists.
Oh.
But maybe it's only available to those who are actually willing to listen deeply, to seek understanding.
Not just those who are conditioned to obey.
Right. It's the difference between just hearing a command and really listening for the truth, or maybe the lack of truth underneath it all.
That's a really profound distinction. Hearing versus listening.
It is.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive into Rostam and Esfandiar, this ancient tragedy, it really highlights the potential danger of blind obedience.
Yeah, even when it comes from a place of faith or noble intentions like Esfandiar's.
It forces us to look at that contrast between awareness, born from asking why, and just assumption, following the script.
And the courage it takes to actually question things, especially when authority seems absolute.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, reflecting on all this.
Drawn from these themes, yeah.
Think about where, maybe in your own life or just out there in the world, you see structures or commands or traditions, things followed just because they're presented as sacred or just the rules.
And ask yourself, are we listening for that challenging Simurgh truth, the deeper wisdom that might question things?
Or are we choosing the perhaps more comfortable path of just obeying,
Yeah.
prioritizing obedience over those uncomfortable but maybe necessary questions?
Something to definitely think about.